Hello, and thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Billy Newman Photo Podcast. Appreciate you guys checking this episode out. I wanted to talk today about some more photography stuff and then some more kind of outdoor wilderness travel stuff that I was kind of interested in. Also, a cool space event is happening right about now, so it's kind of fun. But probably talk about a couple of those things on this episode. I wanted to talk about this idea that I've been reading in a book. I was checking out the Wilderness Skills and Survival book put out by Meat Eater. I think it was written by Steve Rinella and the group of people that put together the show Meat Eater and the podcast. And a lot of that is where I get a lot of the good information that I get for wilderness outdoor stuff is out of that podcast and out of their content shows and stuff. But I was checking out this passage in their book that I was just reading, and it was talking about outdoor risk in wilderness areas. And it was sort of, it kind of talked about it more broadly, but then it brought it down into the United States. And it was mentioning the number of injuries and then specifically deaths that have occurred in photography-related activities. And it was mentioning that photography-related activities was one of the highest killers in wilderness in the last decade, as we really saw like a big ramp up of it. And I think worldwide the number was somewhere around 230 deaths have occurred, I think in relation to risky photos or selfies or kind of a number of different kind of, activities related around getting a good shot. And I can kind of get into more specifics around professional or, kind of how when doing work outside, you sort of get yourself into those positions. And then also in just sort of the more relaxed take of it, of being on vacation, being a tourist and taking photos and then getting into a risky situation. But as it was mentioning, animal attacks or, like deaths by a wild animal, or something like that, or freezing to death of exposure or something was kind of almost outpaced by the number of people that got themselves into a high risk and then eventually deadly scenario by doing some kind of photo activity in a wilderness location. So I guess in the United States, it was, I think 12 people have died from photo-related activities in wilderness areas within the United States in the last decade. 12 is really not that many, but that also kind of puts into perspective how many wild animal attacks there are that end in a fatality, I guess is how it is. So the numbers of both would probably be more if it was a more flexible tally of injuries only. But as it goes for fatalities, it's pretty low. There's really not many bear attacks. There's like no cougar attacks or mountain lion attacks, right? Like I think there was like one last year, one in Oregon, one in Washington. And then it had also been, I think, a long time since there had really been any cougar fatalities. Sometimes there are attacks. Sometimes it's like after a dog or something. Sometimes there's, bad encounters for sure. And I think it's pretty common, or it ends up being more common than you would have thought for people that spend a lot of time in the outdoors to have a complicated encounter with a individual wildlife specimen. But it's really pretty rare that it ends up in the position of a fatality. And that's sort of one of those weird things that's out about it. But you could probably maybe would put a lot of thought into the risk of seeing a bear when you're out or something like that. But you wouldn't maybe put as much thought into the risk of stepping on a slippery log in a precarious angle near a hill where you're going to take a picture and you think that angle would be right or something. Or you're going to step near the edge of something to hold a camera out to take a selfie picture, of yourself, or just a picture of yourself. I hate the word selfie, as people have been doing that for a long time. But yeah, getting a picture of yourself or something and then having a fall, something like that, it seems to be the way that a lot of these kind of risky behaviors end up happening, where you try and kind of push yourself out of the way of the crowd a lot of the time, or out of the way that every other person is, or you try and move the camera to a high angle or a low angle so you can kind of get a new perspective on it. But sometimes with those issues, or sometimes with that, you kind of push yourself into locations that are of higher risk, and it ends up being something that causes more problems for people than a lot of the other wilderness risk activities that people involve themselves in. So things I've kind of seen a lot is in where there's sort of a more structured environment. I think like a number of waterfall locations I've been to, people sort of got hot on well, how do I explain it more clearly? Like, I think the Tokedy Falls waterfall section. It's an area east of Roseburg. You go out there, and I don't know if it's on the Umpqua. I think it's on like Tokey Creek or something. But this fall system, beautiful. It's been in a bunch of calendars. Really cool to see. They've put in a bunch of effort to make this this kind of landing platform. You go on like kind of a 1/4 mile hike along this ridge line, and then it kind of drops down to this platform that's still about 50 feet up above or maybe 75 feet up above the water. And then if you want, well, if you bushwhack it, and I think if you kind of go against maybe some of what the state park agency there wants you to do. I don't know if it's a state park there, but probably over what the manager wants you to do. There's a lot of people that have kind of bushwhacked off of that platform down the steep hillside, and then they go down about 75 feet or so they can get sort of a more centered position in the Tokedy Falls pool that sort of splashes out. The fall comes off, crashes down, makes a big pool out, and then that kind of wraps around for maybe 100 feet or so, and then it kind of reforms into a smaller stream and then continues on downhill. And so what people do is they scale down this hill down below the platform, and it's really that point when they start to enter into that level of extended risk where they're carrying a camera or they're carrying some set of equipment. They're probably not equipped with the right kind of safety gear to get down that sort of slope, whether it just be like good boots and jeans or a trekking pole, or if it happened to be like a carabiner and a rope or a piece of webbing to help kind of steady your ascent or help you get down and then ascend back up that when you get down there. Man, that's kind of like the tricky part is you get down a hill and then you have to get back up that in a pretty reasonable fashion. But sometimes, those ridges can just be too steep a country, especially if you hadn't really prepared, or if you prepared for a car travel trip. You get down there and tennis shoes or sneakers, you jump into the water, you get back out, and then you try and shuffle up the side of this hillside wet. Group of Canadian geese are taking off in this wetland area that I'm at. It's kind of cool. You can probably hear them coming through. Maybe I'll noise gate it out. I can't tell, but yeah, like some of this outdoor risk stuff comes from people kind of jumping off the trail and sort of trying to shuffle down the sides of stuff when it's probably really not something that individually that person is ready for or equipped for is probably the other side of it. So it's really just stuff like slipping on a wet rock on a slope, or man, what's gotten me a couple times pretty bad is sliding on like a smooth log, like a log that had moss on it, and now that moss is kind of scraped away, or even if not, you step on it with a boot on sort of an incline of a slope, and gravity will just kind of yank you down. And the moss isn't gripped to that slick piece of wood underneath at all. So it's just like a nice slippery piece of round wood. And the boot grabs it, slips right off of it. And then that's kind of sent me tumbling a couple times. So it's kind of frustrating when that kind of stuff happens. But the photography, one of the bigger risks related to outdoor activity. So it's kind of that tricky thing when doing like wilderness stuff or outdoor stuff, even when you're pretty close to a car. There's sort of like a lot of risk of sometimes injury, or sometimes kind of an exponentially expanding sort of scenario or situation where things kind of get worse and worse and worse and worse. Like you're out there in the snow in your car, or you're in your car, you're at a day and you're going over a mountain pass, but you're not really equipped to do like an overnight thing. But if you go out for a little bit, then you get stuck there, and then maybe you get back to your car, but now it's nighttime and now it's cold. It's just sort of like this escalating set of things that sort of start to cause more problems. And that's sort of kind of how some of these wilderness things go, where you don't really think it's going to be a problem, and then it starts to happen, and then that causes another problem, and that causes a few other problems, and sort of dealing with those sets of situations as they come up, so that they don't, just so that you make the right decisions and that you don't end up making more problems for yourself by trying to do something to help yourself survive. Like injuring yourself when you're trying to catch food to eat or something is like a more risky thing. You could probably go without eating that time, and it would be better for you to remain uninjured in part of it. But also, it's just like, wow, how do you do that? Or how do you like go about navigating those sets of choices and have the skills to kind of do that? So I'm sure it's pretty tricky and hard, and that's why it's kind of good to sort of have some competency so you can sort of keep yourself away from those heavier, deep water situations that can kind of get you in trouble and stuff. But also, I don't know, it's something you can kind of learn how to do. I hope to kind of get into that more within this podcast too, of kind of talking about that in relation to doing some photography stuff outside. Pretty much everything I've been doing for the last few months of this podcast, but talking about a lot of the wilderness outdoor stuff, and then sort of how that relates to doing some photography and media stuff when you're outdoors too. So yeah, I don't know, it's kind of trippy getting into the wilderness risk stuff that you can have out there, and I don't know, I've been pretty lucky with the kinds of things that have happened to me before. I think I've nearly been lost before out in the woods. That's kind of, or there's a few like hard fought lessons that I've learned over time, and part of it is to kind of like stop moving and stop making mistakes when you start to make mistakes. Man, that was kind of the tricky one of like trying to move around too much at night when it's dark out, because you think, well, maybe I can get in a better position because it's a risky position right now, but really movement at night is the riskier position, especially when like there's almost no risk of exposure problems or something like that. So I remember being out at night up in the mountains, and then I was in like kind of this rocky area, and I had lost the trail. I still had my gear with me, which is great, and so I could put down and kind of set up anywhere. But I remember kind of being weirded out. I weirded myself out, kind of being out there on sort of this pretty strong rocky incline that I guess would sort of slope back down to wherever it intersected back in with the trail. But I was off pretty far, and so I remember just being dark, and if it was light out, you could kind of hop down and sort of pick out a route, hop down with almost no risk at all. It just sort of seemed like a pretty natural, normal thing to do. But scaling down the side of a mountain at 9:30 at night with not much of a light ahead of you and no trail and stuff, it just didn't seem to work. So I remember kind of making a couple mistakes in a pretty short amount of time, and I was thinking, whoa, I gotta stop because it will get more risky if I keep kind of trying to do this. So I remember stopping and then just setting up my camp right there on whatever rock I had stood on. But I looked around a little bit to kind of make sure I was in an okay spot. And I just kind of tucked away in this little crack between or this kind of cove between the rock as it was sort of coming down, and then it would sort of shelf off a little bit. But I kind of scooped myself in this little spot there, really just about big enough for me to put my sleeping bag and my body in there. And then I kind of had the tent out as like a mosquito net sort of thing above me, but I didn't have any of the poles set up. And so I was just kind of in there, held up. I had my backpack there, and I was able to make it through the night just fine. And then in the morning, I was able to kind of pack up and load out. And then it took me 8 minutes to find my way back to the trail in the right way. And I remember kind of thinking about that as like oh man, like that's such a weird thing of try not to get into that sort of situation unless that's the plan, the agenda. But sort of having things go off the agenda is probably the first sign that things are getting a little bit too out of control to sort of remain a thing that stays smooth for a long time. And that's always what's kind of weird of getting into those more risky situations and stuff, or weird situations. I think it's kind of like taking your time as much as you can, kind of moving slowly when you can, helps out a lot. Man, weird stuff like that. But getting stuck out at night or getting lost or getting in weird spots that it's hard to get out of, and you're trying to get back to your gear and you think that's what you need, or whatever it might be. There's just kind of like weird little movements that you make of being away when you want to get back to this camp part that you were at, but also maybe it's better for you to just kind of stay put for a little bit and kind of figure out what you're up to. I picked up a couple cool pieces of gear. I was talking about flashlights last time, and some of these coast lights, and like Streamlight, and then I think it was Surefire. I think Surefire is that other brand I was trying to talk about. That was I think it has a contract with the Marines or something, or a contract with the military to have these Surefire lights for their tactical equipment, but they're insanely expensive. If you look up Surefire lights, you can spend like $1,300 on a high-powered metal flashlight. You think, wow, that's a lot of money. It sure seems like a nice flashlight, but Surefire stuff is crazy. So kind of down from there is like Streamlight. They have a lot of rescue lights and tactical lights and stuff that all seem cool. And then there's also this other brand. Excuse me. There's this other brand, Coast, that I was checking out. They were a company out of Portland. I thought they were pretty cool with some of the lights and products that they had out. And they were really like inexpensive, but also had like a lot of durability to them also. So I thought that was kind of cool. I picked up a few of those a few weeks back. And then as I was checking out some stuff, a bunch of geese flying over me right now. It's cool out here. They get moving as soon as the sun starts going down. It's kind of fun. But what I was checking out was this clip light. There's sort of these tactical lights that are out there. Streamlight has this one. I think it's called the Sidewinder that I think is pretty cool. But they're these angled lights where you can have it like a flashlight. It's like it would point kind of straight out in front of you if you held it out. It's like a rod, and at the end of that rod, there's the light, and it shines forward. But what's kind of cool about some of these tactical lights is they have these rotating heads on them, so you can have it point out straight in front of you, and then you can also kick that down so that it's a 90-degree angle where it's kind of like an L bracket angle, and then it can shine out in front of you if you have the light, I guess, at a stand or something like that. So it's kind of cool, and I guess they use them in the military for some uses and stuff. The sidewinder, I think, boot or something like that, is a good entry level one. I think that's like a $30 flashlight that has that tactical clip light look that I think hooks onto the Molle straps that you see on backpacks. So like those military packs, it's kind of like thin straps, and you have like an inch loop, or not a loop, but it's like a pretty tightly woven strap that kind of cups over, and it's about like an inch long or so. But you can hook a piece of gear into that, like an extra bag that holds a utility, or in this case like a flashlight that'll clip on there, and then you have it at that 90-degree angle to shine out in front of you. So you have like your headlamp, or you have a side light or something like that, but this one I think is to kind of clip onto gear, or clip onto like your jacket or backpack or something, so that it shines out in front of you. So you have like a body light on you at the same time. But there's that sidewinder, or the Streamlight sidewinder, and then they have another tier of those sidewinder lights that are more, I guess, tactical ready, that are like $130 or something like that. They go up way up in price, but they're LED lights. They've got the red LED light, and I think they've also got like a couple communication lights. It's sort of like a military specific thing where you can run a green light or a red light or a blue light, I guess, kind of depending on your mode, whatever that means. I think it's like a training operation thing that they do specifically. And I think you can also get a version with a UV light that kind of cuts in there, which is kind of interesting. But I was also checking out this Coast light, this Coast clip light that they have, and it's got like a magnet backing on it, and then it's got a roller head on it. It's a lot smaller than the Sidewinder. It's really only like 3 inches or so tall, and then instead of like a joint that has an angled light unit in it, it's really just a cylinder that sort of rolls in place where it is. You'd have to kind of look it up to visualize, I guess, what I'm talking about. But the cylinder sort of rolls its angle from being 180 out to 90, and yeah, it works really well. It's got the red light. It's got a UV light option also on there. If you want to pick up that unit, I guess that'd be like more like a medical unit. I don't know what they use the UV stuff for, but I see like UV light for a lot of these equipment, like work lights or service lights that people would get, if they're working as like a EMT or in a police field or something like that. And then I see like the red lights a lot for trying to preserve your eyesight in low light situations and stuff. That works great for my sort of stuff of trying to do camping or, I don't know, astrophotography or whatever it is, and trying to roam around with a little red light and stuff kind of helps out with like the headlamp when you're at night kind of around the campfire and you don't want to shine your full-on spotlight around the camp everywhere. And it works really well with this little clip light to run the red light in sort of a dimmer mode on a backpack or something. So I guess the plan is I'm going to try and throw one of these clip lights onto my backpack or onto my camera bag or something like that, so that I always have like a light running on it when I'm in low light situations. So like when I'm out trying to do some star photo stuff, or like right now, like, man, it gets dark so early, but so I'm trying to go out early. I mean, you can go out at like 4 o'clock, or like, I don't know, I guess it's getting a little bit lighter now, but you can go out at like 5 o'clock and it'll be dark in almost no time. And if you're lucky enough to have some dark weather, like right now, you can see how close Jupiter and Saturn are together. Really cool how the Great Conjunction came about, how they're really close together. I mean, gosh, it's like just like pinpoints next to each other. So if you're trying to like do some photographs of that or other star stuff, or just do some observations and stuff like that, it's cool. You can go out there and then throw on this red light and not have that affect your pupil contraction, to allow more light into your eyes while you're out there. It does a better job. It's better to have it just perfectly dark. But if you do need some light, the red light does a lot to keep you from losing your night vision as you get out there and your eyes start to dilate to the dark light conditions that you're in. So it's kind of cool. But yeah, as for doing like some photo stuff out there, it's kind of cool to be able to clip the light to the bag and have that running, and then I can kind of leave the bag, or that's sort of what ends up happening a bit too, is like I'll sort of adjust the tripod, or I'll move it away, and then I'm sort of getting into the photo that I'm taking, and now I've set the bag down and I've moved the tripod now 2 times or 3 times, and now it's dark out, and I'm thinking, wait a second, where's my bag at? I just left it, and I moved now 20 feet or 30 feet, or now there's like an obstacle in the way, and I don't know where it is, and it's dark out, so it's a lot harder to find. So what I've been trying to do is, for a while this summer, I got like a pack of glow sticks. I took a glow stick to my truck. I took a glow stick to my camera bag so that I could find it easy. I have my headlamp and stuff with me, and that has a red light and stuff too, and I can crank up the spotlight and scope around and stuff, but it's really a lot easier when you just don't have to do that sort of stuff, or when there's at least some kind of a little trigger that's showing you, hey, over here. That's where you left that backpack and stuff. So now, hopefully, I don't know, I won't have to lose my backpack or lose my stuff out there, or at least like have the fear of that while I'm trying to like hunt around and look at, hey, where'd it go? Did it fall over? Like, is it down by this stump or something? It always kind of slips off from wherever it was, that woodsy stuff too. It's like nothing's ever as organized or clean in a feeling as what it seems like it should be. You know, just the system and stuff. It gets like a little clumsy, so you can't always keep it like as straight as you would if you're in a more organized, normal environment like you are at home. And that's sort of what kind of amplifies that risk stuff too a little bit. But yeah, it's cool throwing a light on the bag that you have, especially when you're in like nighttime, kind of darker conditions. It's cool to get to throw that in there and yeah, be able to find it again. But as it goes for like a little utility light, it's pretty cool. I've been trying to throw that in as a little like security light, or safety light or something like that. I was looking up like emergency kits and stuff, the types of things that you want to have in them, and it's sort of like adhesives, like glues. That's not glue, you know, like Elmer super glue and stuff, but probably something like a JB Weld or a super glue, or one of those like plastic like adhesive welders and stuff. So it really, that's like or like tapes or something like that, but it's really so you can repair stuff as it kind of might fall apart in you while you're out in the field. And if you can get a couple of those things to help you bond some things together, that's sort of the stuff that you would have to repair or do or build when you're out there. And I think a lot of that stuff is stuff that you can get for a couple bucks, put in an ammo can that you get for a couple bucks, and then you have a little like car utility kit where you have like a fix-a-flat, you have a fire starter, you have a couple emergency lights, a couple emergency knives, or, you know, like some kind of sharp knife blade or multi-tool or Leatherman knockoff kind of things scooting around in there. And then you also have, stuff to make a fire, stuff to make a quick, like dry weather shelter, tarp or something like that. But a few of those things to kind of have around is cool. And then really like, the adhesive stuff comes in handy too if you have like a car breakdown, or if in emergency circumstances when you need to, man, I've had like a vacuum hose go on me, and I was thinking, wow, it's a good thing I have like some tape or some adhesive to try and kind of patch this thing up a little bit so I can get back down to the road, which is cool. Or like I've had like battery problems. That one sucks when you're like, well, I don't know if the car's going to start this morning because it was cold, or because I don't know, like the interior was like, it just was finicky all the time. So you'd have to kind of bang on it a little bit and try and get it going again. And that was a weird one. Or like that kind of problem when you're out on a road trip is frustrating, especially when it's chronic and you're out there for like a longer time. And if you're not really in a position to get it fixed right away, you're just like, well, what am I doing out here? Like, I'm out here for 15 days and I don't know if my car's going to start. This sucks. So that's come up before. But if you can get over that stuff, I guess you can kind of start to figure out how to get out of there and stuff. But I was thinking about, like, I was looking at Costco. They have this big inverter box that I really like those inverters in the past. I used them in my car and stuff to help me charge batteries, help me run stuff before. But I think Costco has this big inverter that I think they've got like a cheaper one that's a battery starter, probably for the cars and stuff. But they got this truck-sized one. I was like, man, I should get this guy. You know, it's got like a full like power outlet on the front of it where you can just plug in and run stuff off of whatever's on power, or you can run it on however it's charging from the car itself. But it's kind of wild, the two of them, or, you know, like trying to get power and stuff out on the road. But I was thinking, man, I should have an inverter around, so if I need to run some power to my my battery to get it jumped in the morning or something, I can still do it. It's kind of weird when you're out there just by yourself. You got no one else around you, no other truck, no one else to run a jump start if that's what you need. And now I don't have like a stick shift or something, so I can't do the bump start like I did way back in the day. I bump started the Camry a couple times. I bump started the 4Runner when it didn't start. Ugh, the nightmares of that. I'll get into that next time. But yeah, thanks a lot for listening to this episode of the podcast. You can check out more information at billynewmanphoto.com. You can go to billynewmanphoto.com/support if you want to help me out and participate in the value for value model that we're running this podcast with. if you receive some value out of some of the stuff that I was talking about, you're welcome to help me out and send some value my way through the portal at billynewmanphoto.com/support. You can also find more information there about Patreon and the way that I use it. If you're interested or feel more comfortable using Patreon, that's patreon.com/billynewmanphoto. So some cool stuff coming up. Got the music podcast that I'm working on, the music listening sessions with Billy Newman. I got the Night Sky podcast stuff that I'm trying to put out. I'm also trying to figure out some video and media stuff to go up on YouTube this year too. I'm trying to figure out as many things as I can do to kind of get some stuff together quickly, and then also sort of have that set up so that it automates out over a lot of time, so that, you know, for the next 6 months, I've got videos and photos and stuff ready to go that I've already put together and set up and written out, and it's no sweat off my back, so I can just kind of head out and do more camping, do more photo time. Hopefully I get to do more of that now that it's kind of coming into January. Man, New Year! We're almost there. Thanks a lot for listening to this episode of the Billy Newman Photo Podcast. I will talk to you again next time. Thanks.